long as I was going after the crooks that didn't have badges, I was everybody's hero.
Hey, Vic, it's good to see you again. We just took a little break from last week's episode. Now we're back here in the future, like Bill and Ted traveling through time.
Yeah. I bet the car keys are right over there.
Yeah, that's it. For those who have seen the movie, the jail key. Gotta remember to put it there, dude. That's so funny. Well, our message is the same 2 weeks in a row. Be excellent to each other.
Be excellent to each other. Yeah, we haven't been wearing these shirts for 2 weeks. This is only like 10 minutes from our last episode. We're recording 2 today since we have all of our equipment working at the same time. So, yeah, we need some more sponsors. I had wanted some corporate sponsors or to be picked up by some big conglomerate so that we could go around and solve some of these cases, you know. But I don't want to travel right now. So we got to wait. Got to do it this way. I'm not going to travel. I was scheduled to go to Aspen, Colorado in August for the NORML, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Oh, wow. I'm on their legal committee. Mm-hmm. And this convention was scheduled for, I think, May. And then they came back and said, no, we're putting it off till August.
Yeah.
And then last week I got the email says, sorry guys, we're canceling this year.
Pull the plug.
Mm-hmm. So if NORML is pulling the plug, you know, I'm going to play it cautious. I wrote Betty Blackwell an email this morning. She's a fabulous criminal defense lawyer down in Austin. And I think she's president of the Travis County Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. And I had been invited down to speak to their group in July. Right. I was going to be their keynote speaker in July. But I wrote her this morning. I said, you know, NORML just canceled this thing for August. So I'm rethinking July. And so we agreed to put it off. So I will not be in Austin speaking in July. We're going to schedule that off to a later date.
Well, fair enough. Speaking of shout outs, though, I'd like to give 2. MC Art Supply. They're great.
And Casey Thomas, who works with us, make sure that they stay supplied with plenty of stickers. So yeah, man. You order something from them, whether you pick it up curbside or whether it's mailed to you, you'll get a sticker.
Love it. And one more shout out, Vic. We had a gentleman on the show a few months ago, Mr. Doug Swanson. We talked about his book. Well,
I know Doug.
Book is finally coming out. So we have June the 9th, Cult of Glory.
Cult of Glory, June the 9th. Pick it up, people. You're going to love it. It's got a chapter in there about the Henry Lucas thing and me and what they did to me and all. And it's a full and complete history of the Texas Rangers. It tells the good and the bad.
Yep.
And the ugly.
And it'll be available on vicfazell.com. So there'll be a link on our store page where you can buy it directly from Amazon.
Yes, it will. And I got an email from Doug last week that he's going to send me a autographed copy.
Cool.
And I bet you get one too.
Man, that'd be cool. I like it. Doug was cool.
Yeah, Doug's cool. I like Doug.
So
go back and listen to if you haven't heard it yet, listen to our podcast with Doug Swanson, Cult of Glory.
It's a couple part one. It's so cool, Vic. I mean, I didn't know any of that stuff about the old Rangers. And he talks about the ones that are more obscure, plus the ones that were real famous, like the ones who came out of retirement to get Bonnie and Clyde and the truth of all of that. It's really fascinating. Like you said, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but it's the truth.
It is the truth.
Truth. Well, let's talk about some truths today, Vic. What do you got for me?
Do we have any letters or anything like that? Anybody reach out to us?
We've had a number of people reach out to us. So
let's look at a couple.
Well, everybody's been in quarantine. They've had some time to catch up on Netflix. So lots of folks watching The Confession Killer.
Still number 9 in the history of Netflix movie making. Is they're not still number 9 in their top 20.
Really? Of their true crime like series or just all time?
I think it's of anything they've done.
That's incredible.
I'd have to check that, but yeah, I mean, it's they keep putting it out there. Here's our top 20, and Confession Killer is number 9.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
a lot of streams.
yeah, it is.
Let's read a couple of these gems, because for you to read these would just be too self-serving. Here's an email we got recently from Julia. She says, I just watched Confession Killer on Netflix, and I just wanted to say that in spite of the terrible personal cost to you and your family, Vic, it is good to know that there are still people with integrity out there fighting the good fight, and that it's good to see the tone of your voice, in the tone of your voice, that you have peace. Thank you, Mr. Fizell.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for writing in. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Share us with your friends.
Oh, man. Vic, there's so many. Here's Steven from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He actually called in our office just a couple days ago and just wanted you to know, Vic. He said, Vic is a hero of mine, and in the record books, he's an incredible dude. And that for Vic to stand up for what he knows is right is an incredible thing, and he absolutely adores you for it. He was also very impressed with the Netflix docuseries and praises you highly for standing up to the corruption. And he also says he knows Gary Richardson. Hey!
Hey! Well, tell Gary Richardson hi for me. Thanks for listening, Stephen. And keep listening and share us with your friends.
That's cool.
We want our numbers to continue to rise. We're getting more listeners. I got an email from Poland the other day. So you have a new fan in Poland. Well, we got one that I found interesting. I can't remember her name. She said, Vic, I used to like you a lot, but now I don't care for your leftist news or leftist. She might have meant views. I don't think I've said anything leftist. Everything I've said is rightist. Do the right thing.
Right to middle.
Right. Yeah, do the right thing, which is what's right. It's neither left nor right. It's right. You know, now legalizing marijuana, some people might think that's a leftist idea. I don't. I think it's just common sense. I don't know why they're not legalizing it right now to help pump some money into this economy, and also to help people have an easier time staying at home, you know, and getting people off of some of these awful pharmaceuticals they're on, when they could be using a natural herb instead. Yeah, and I'm not for all the extra things they're doing to it. I'm not for manufacturing anything with marijuana. I think if you drop a seed in the ground and it grows, it ought to be legal, and you ought to be able to ingest it. You know, pumping up the strength 1,000 times, you don't want to do that. I don't care about the extracts or any of that. And as everybody knows, I'm a big advocate, even though I don't smoke anymore. Unless I go to Aspen, where it's legal. I was going to smoke in August. I was so looking forward to that, but we'll have to wait.
Yes, you will.
Yeah. That brings us back to the timeline, I guess.
Yeah.
We were still in April on the timeline, and we'll get back to that. I told you, April was a long month.
A lot happened.
A lot happened. I mean, I just think about April 1985 and I get tired. I get anxious. It was a tough month. We got a couple more pages on the timeline before we finish April. However, April 85. However, we have jumped ahead into some of the Belo stuff, which happened in 1991, the Belo trial, because we've got newspaper articles that quote excerpts from the trial,
right?
Things people said under oath.
Right.
So that's good. So the reason that's relevant to April 85 is because April 85, May 85 is when Charles Duncan from Channel 8 hit Waco and started spreading the rumor around that the FBI is investigating Vic Fizell. The FBI is investigating Vic Fizell. He said, he was telling people, why, this intelligence officer with DPS told me that the FBI is investigating Vic Fizell. Well, 2 weeks ago, we read the article they quoted Ron Boyer, where Ron Boyer, under cross-examination, we called Ron Boyer to the stand. Gary Richardson took his deposition and called him to the stand. And he said, no, I never told Charles Duncan that. The FBI didn't get involved until much later.
Right.
Much later.
That's what our episode was last week, was all about when did they actually start the investigation of you. And they were saying it was pre-Lucas, but the truth was, and that's why we read all those articles, was that they investigated you after you brought up the Lucas situation. So
yeah,
their whole thing got blown out.
Yeah. And yeah, go back and listen to that. It wasn't last week's, because last week was about George Floyd in Minneapolis.
Right.
So it'd be the week before. But go back to that and watch that one. Watch it on YouTube, because we actually put the newspaper articles highlighted up on YouTube while we're talking about them. So you can see where Ron Boyer absolutely disputes Charles Duncan. They dropped him in the grease. I mean, they were wanting his help. He was even telling city manager David Smith on a recorded phone call, I really think that I'm going to help the feds be successful, because I don't think they'll be successful without me, and blah, 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 blah. Well, all that had come from Ron Boyer too, because Colonel Jim Adams knew the only way to get the feds in was to have a public outcry.
Right.
And so he was creating the public outcry. But no, Ron Boyer testified on the witness stand that he was assigned to investigate me by Colonel Jim Adams on the very day that he told Colonel Jim Adams that I was going to call a grand jury together to investigate the Lucas Task Force. So that's when it started on me. That's when they came up with that thing about, well, we'll say he's taking bribes. We'll figure out something. We'll find something. And then Charles Duncan hits town, spreading these rumors around and saying that the FBI is investigating Vic Feazell, and it was not true. Boyer got on the stand and denied ever telling him that they weren't involved until months later. And it was obvious the whole thing started because of Lucas. We had kept Duncan on the stand for 10 solid days. And then Boyer was our very next witness. And then we called another witness, a Waco policeman. And then we called this witness. And this name might ring a bell. But see, you got to keep in mind, by this time, I had already been found not guilty.
Right.
I'd gone through the criminal charges where you get no discovery and had been found not guilty. Then I started pursuing the lawsuit, and Gary Richardson and I got every piece of paper anywhere that had my name on it. We sent subpoenas to the FBI, to the Justice Department, to the DPS, to the Waco PD, to the Texas Rangers, to anybody who might have any scrap of paper on me. Wow. And there was never anything that surfaced prior to April 1985. That's when Boyer had his little meeting with Bill Johnston, who was the Waco police legal advisor. And they met in a hotel room and did their dirty business in the hotel room, passing off lies and disinformation. So by the time we got to this trial, the Belo trial, we had done all that discovery, and these guys knew if they lied, we'd catch them in it.
Ooh.
And so Boyer was a lot different on the stand in the Belo trial than he was in my criminal trial.
Right.
Much more forthcoming, because we had the documents to stick up his butt if he lied.
Jeez.
And these other policemen were much more forthcoming than they were in the criminal trial. One in particular. Second police officer refutes TV reports. That's the headline. And this is from March 29th, 1991. A Waco drug agent on Thursday became the second police officer to deny information former Dallas television reporter Charles Duncan attributed to him in the 1985 stories about Vic Feazell. Ruh-roh. Waco officer Donnie Tidmore
I remember that name.
I remember that name, Donnie Tidmore. Remember, he had the nickname Cuffs because he was dating the girl in my office, and she had nicknamed him Cuffs because one of them liked to be cuffed to the bed. I can't remember which because I didn't want to hear those stories, but he had picked up the nickname Cuffs. He's also the one who climbed the telephone pole behind my house, one of the ones who climbed the telephone pole behind my house, but he's the one that my ex-wife Bernie saw coming off of that telephone pole, and she identified him because she knew who he was. She had seen him numerous times, and she knew Donnie Tidmore.
Wow.
And he's probably the one, or if he's not the one, he knows who killed my dog Spanky.
Mm-hmm.
They poisoned my little dog for barking at him back there. This is the same Donnie Tidmore. Waco's officer Donnie Tidmore said he did not tell Duncan that 2 drug defendants predicted on the night of their arrest that their sentences would be probated and that their attorney's fees would be $12,000.
Wow.
Because see, that was in Duncan's report. Duncan goes, and Fazell is soft on drug cases. Why, 2 defendants reported said on the night of their arrest. They said to the police on the night of their arrest, I'm not worried about this. I'll pay my lawyer $12,000 and I won't go to jail.
Wow.
Well, and here's Donnie Tidmore saying, no, I never told Duncan that.
Oh.
But it ended up in the report.
Right.
That Duncan did on TV about me. Duncan reported in part 6. Part 6?
Yeah. How many parts was it total?
11, dude.
11?
11.
Oh.
There are 10 factual episodes about, well, no, I'm not going to honor it by saying factual.
Right.
There are 10 episodes that claim to be investigative reports. And then there was one recap, a long one, that Tracy Rowlett did, which was his opinion, his perspective.
Oh.
And now for a perspective from Tracy Rowlett. And he recapped everything Duncan did.
Right. I can't do that.
Yeah.
To give a little tease to our listeners, you went back on perspective, right? Because back then, whenever what was the rule? Tell me.
Well, back then, if they editorialized against you, if it was not news, but opinion, and this was labeled opinion, well, back then you could demand equal time.
And you did, and
I did. I wrote the letter, I cited the law, and I demanded equal time, and they had to give it to me. That was before Rush Limbaugh and his ilk, who could just go on TV and lie and lie and lie. There is something called fake news, and it started a long time ago. And Rush Limbaugh is one of the worst purveyors of that fake news. And so I wrote and I said, I want equal time. And I went up there and I did my little 2 minutes and something. First take, said it, got up, walked away. They had to play it.
Hilarious, and I can't wait to play it for the listeners whenever we get to that part. I don't want to jump the gun because it's such a
jump. But when we get around to it, we're also going to put up the newspaper article from Ed Bark, the media shark, because he was at home and accidentally saw that on TV and decided to write a column about it. Okay. So it was interesting. So anyway, Duncan reported in part 6 of his series that the defendants accurately predicted their sentences and attorney's fees on the night of their arrest. Well, Donnie Tidmore says, nope, that's not true.
Oh.
And I told you, we got everything from these guys. We also got Duncan's tape recordings. And did you know that Duncan had actually called one of those defendants and got him on the phone and recorded it?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
What do you think that guy said?
Well, I think it was a whole lot of, what? That didn't happen like that.
In a taped telephone interview with Duncan, one of the defendants told the former reporter that he did not predict his 4-year probated sentence or what his fee would be. The defendant said his attorney charged him $4,000, not $12,000, as Duncan reported, and that he knew that defendants rarely get sent to prison on first offense for cocaine possession.
Wow.
And that's true, unless you got a whole lot of it, you know. But for
Oh.
personal use, you're not going to go to prison first time. At least certainly not back then.
But this is crazy, Vic. So Duncan knew, and he still lied.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you how much political power these guys have, though, going back to the perspective. After I wrote and demanded equal time, it pissed them off so bad. They got so upset that they got with their buddies with the media lobby. And they lobbied, and they had the rule changed. And Ronald Reagan revoked that rule.
What a trip.
What a trip. Because that was about the time that these b-holes like Rush Limbaugh was coming along and just leveling this country with false news and turning us against each other, turning neighbor against neighbor. Like you discussed in our, either earlier in this episode or in our last episode, about people forwarding fake news. It's because the reason they do it is because it touches their trigger and they want to prove their point of view. It's a bias. It's called confirmation bias. I don't care if it's false as long as it confirms what I believe. And so Ronald Reagan was making the way for people like Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and the 24-hour news cycle that we don't need anymore, just to keep us against each other and hating each other, and so that they could go on TV and lie, just totally lie about somebody, and you're not even allowed to get the equal time to respond. Some big multi-state, sometimes multinational media corporation with so much power snuffing out the little guy, and then the only law that protected him, Ronald Reagan and those who were putting together this idea of this new America. You know, they talk about making America great again. Well, you know, let's put that rule back. That would help a lot, wouldn't it? Let's put that rule back. Let's do some fact checking. President Trump, let's do some real fact checking, and let's not threaten and criticize people who are just wanting to tell the truth and stop big fat mouth liars from lying. Big fat liars and their big fat mouth lies. You know, it's just too much. It's too much. So you get stomped on now, you don't even get equal time.
You don't get anything.
I got equal time and I got to sue them. You get stomped on now, you don't get equal time. And if you try to sue them, you're going to have a lot tougher road than I had, because those media lobbyists also changed all the media law. They had Congress, they had the state legislature, and they had the Republican Supreme Court of Texas change all the media law. So if you get lied about like I was, people, you don't have the same chance I have. Right. Because they've gone and closed all the little loopholes and closed all the doors and made it so that you just can't hardly do it.
Right.
It's just really sad. In a taped interview, he said he did not predict his 4-year sentence, and he knew he wouldn't be sent to prison because first offenders just aren't sent.
Right.
And Duncan admitted that that was him on that tape, and he admitted that he knew the guy said it, but he still put the lie out there anyway. And Duncan, when Gary asked him, well, what did the other defendants say? He said 2 of them said that. And Duncan said, well, I was never able to get the second defendant on the phone.
Wow.
So he just said it anyway.
So he lied one and then ran one totally unconfirmed. And even then he said he paid his lawyer, what, $4,000, not 12? It's like,
yeah,
not even close, Charles Duncan, not even close.
Yeah. And I made a mistake here a while back. I said that the Charles Duncan stuff started in May. It actually started in early June. So it was early June, right about the time we lost Henry Lucas. And while this was going on, my dad, who is pastoring a church in South Louisiana, had a major heart attack. So I'm dealing with all of this. I'm having to worry about what Charles Duncan is going to say about me the next night on TV. And then I get a call, Vic, you got to get to Louisiana right now because your dad's probably not going to make it through the night.
Oh, man.
So I had to go. I got there. A real nice guy in Waco with his own plane flew me there, landed me in a cow pasture where I was picked up in an old pickup truck and taken straight to the hospital.
Wow.
Well, my dad survived. He turned 93 last week.
Yeah, he's still rocking.
Yeah, he's still rocking. The old Fred still got it, man. Still got his mind, too. So I had all of that going on at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was Tidmore. Duncan, now a private investigator in Dallas, has countered that his series was factual. What? How can that be? And balanced. Gary Richardson asked him, "You knew this wasn't true. You knew it wasn't true, but you said it anyway. Why did you do that?" And they teach in law school never to ask the why question. But it's okay to ask a why question if there's no way they can answer it, see. And you know what Duncan's answer was? He said, his eyes got like a deer in the headlight. And he said, poetic license?
Wow. He had nothing. He had nothing.
He said he based his stories on court records and interviews with credible sources familiar with the controversial public figure. Well, the only thing he got right in that sentence was that I was a controversial public figure. Tidmore said he talked to Duncan about some cases he had worked on. However, Tidmore disputed other facts in Duncan's 6th episode that Duncan attributed to Tidmore and his colleague, Dean Priddy.
Right.
Now, we hadn't talked much about Dean Priddy before because I appreciated Dean Priddy coming voluntarily and telling the truth in the Belo trial, and because I don't think Dean Priddy was one of the ones climbing my pole or killing my dog. Duncan, who was on the stand for 10 days, testified that Department of Public Safety investigator Ron Border told him the FBI had been investigating Feazell for about 5 months by April 24, 1985. We already know that's a lie. Yep. When Duncan met in a Waco motel room with Border and Bill Johnston, former legal advisor to the Waco police. Wow. And we've talked some about Bill when we talked about the Netflix series Waco, about the Davidians. Yeah. Because by then, Bill had become an assistant U.S. attorney. That was his reward for turning on me. Mm-hmm. And that backfired in his face. Yeah. Yeah, he was the only one who got indicted out of that whole Davidian thing. And it was for destroying evidence. Yeah, covering his own butt and destroying evidence. On Wednesday, Border denied telling Duncan about the FBI investigation. He said federal agents and the U.S. Attorney's Office didn't become involved in the investigation until months later. Months. Now, what that means is that when Jan Patterson came to see me in Cleburne while I was trying Munir Deeb on a capital murder case on the Lake Waco triple murders, that was about the time they probably started looking at me. Right. So that wasn't until 1986. That'd have been months later. In other testimony Thursday, David Dickinson. We know David.
Yes, we do.
David's a great lawyer. He's one of the best lawyers in Waco, Texas. He's one of the best lawyers in the state of Texas. I love Dave Dickinson. He's an honest man. He's a good father. And he and Pat Murphy and some of the other core group that I had were the best people I've ever worked with. Dave was an assistant DA in my office before he went out on his own and got rich and famous. I love Dave. In other testimony Thursday, Dave Dickinson, a former assistant district attorney under Feazell, said that he, Feazell, and former first assistant Deanna Fitzgerald, and Deanna was the first female first assistant in the history of McLennan County. Cool. I hired her. Yeah. But anyway, all of us met with Duncan in Feazell's office on May 17, 1985, and offered to give him any court records or case disposition reports that he was interested in and helping him in his research. But we offered to let him just rifle through the file cabinets. We would give him anything he wanted to see. You know what he says?
Don't want
This is according to Dave Dickinson on the witness stand under oath. Dave said that Duncan declined their offer, saying that he merely was checking into generalized rumors at that point and didn't have any specific cases in mind. Did not have any specific cases in mind. Looking into rumors. Yeah, he was carrying the water for Colonel Jim Adams because I had pissed him off over Henry Lee Lucas. Hi, I'm Vic Fazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Fazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Fazell.